But if we're not happy with that, and if we still deny it and deny the history of the VMAX, we can look at Yamaha itself and how it classified it. So ever since I got my VMAX and started making videos, I've noticed that a lot of people have made comments that they don't think that this is a cruiser or a power cruiser. They will call it either a standard or a naked. And I've actually seen this going on other websites as well, other YouTube channels. And it often happens from people who even own a VMAX 1700. So there seems to be some confusion as to what category or what style of motorcycle the VMAX belongs. And I just want to talk about that a little bit, see if I can clear things up. And I think in order to do it justice, we have to start with when the original VMAX came out in 1985. What exactly was that one? And when it came out in 1985, it was to go head-to-head with the V65 Magna, which had been out for 2 years. And the V65 Magna was the first power cruiser. So obviously cruisers have been around forever, most notably Harley Davidson, and everybody wants to take a swipe at Harley when it comes to cruisers. So Honda's response was to simply make a powerful cruiser, and that's when they used the V4 engine, which is something that Harley didn't have. And that's how the Magna got all of its power and became the bike that it became, and why it was so iconic. Well, Suzuki and Yamaha decided to answer a couple of years later in 1985. And Yamaha, of course, with the VMAX, and Suzuki had the Madura, and both of them were 1200s. So there for a while we had 3 power cruisers, and that title has kind of stuck all through the years, even though power cruisers have come and gone over the years. Particularly the Madura, it only stuck around for a couple, and then the Magna was, I think, on again, off again, but it's long since been gone. So that really only leaves one. Now a lot of people that look at the bike today and compare it with bikes of today, and they'll say, well, it kind of looks like a naked. Well, I think we need to talk a little bit about what a naked is. Back in the 80s, when all of the sport bikes came about, everybody and their brother was competing for that segment of the market as well. And of course, one of the most obvious features of a sport bike is all of the plastic that they put on there. And that's what really gives the sport bike a lot of its cool looks. Well, by the early 90s, some of the plastic started coming off, and they decided to call it a naked, because underneath it was pretty much still the same sport bike, but without all of the plastic. So it was considered a naked sport bike. And there were some other changes as well, such as the controls were probably a little more forward, which more like mid controls, and the handlebars, I believe, came back a little bit more, a little higher, and came back more towards the rider. But other than that, the basic fundamentals of it, the basic mechanics of it, was pretty much still a sport bike. But anyway, that's where the term naked came from. A naked is a naked sport bike. So to call the VMAX a naked is definitely not accurate, because this bike never had a bunch of fairings on it. And then some will call it a standard, but this is clearly, there's a difference between what a cruiser looks like and what a standard looks like. And just to show you some examples, I'll put on the screen some of today's standard motorcycles. And while I'm at it, I will put on a few examples of today's naked motorcycles. Now you have to look at the VMAX and do some comparisons and ask yourself, okay, which one does that look like? And really it's neither. It definitely looks closer to a Harley Cruiser than it does either a naked or a standard. And again, we're back to how the name came about. But if we're not happy with that, and if we still deny it and deny the history of the VMAX, we can look at Yamaha itself and how it classified it, particularly beginning in 1996, when Yamaha created a separate division, and that division was called Star Motorcycles, and it lasted about 20 years. But the idea behind Star Motorcycles was that was going to be its cruiser line. And by the way, the Star line, as I've mentioned in another video, it was only something that was done here in the United States. And this was Yamaha's cruiser line, and again, designed to go head-to-head with Harley-Davidson. And I will put up a listing of some of the bikes that were sold under the Star line back when it existed. And some of these motorcycles still exist today. They're just no longer called Star motorcycles. They're back to using the parent name of Yamaha. And so as you can see, the VMAX was in there. And you can also see here in other places where Star is referred to as the cruiser line. And you can also see where in other places the VMAX is referred to as a power cruiser. So the two go hand in hand. So the power cruiser fit into the division, that fit into the style of bike that the Star Motorcycles was all about. And one of the things that's interesting is that when they made the second generation VMAX, you know, that's when the Star motorcycle existed. So what I have found is that a lot of the parts that were made for the VMAX were made when Star existed. And a couple of examples are with what the motorcycle, the packaging that it comes in, and even the logo that it has. As you can see on the motorcycle cover for the VMAX, as I mentioned several videos ago, that it was clearly made during the Star era. The passenger backrest was also made during that era and came in Star packaging. And I think a lot of that is still just left over from the days when they had manufactured all of that. So no telling how long some of this stuff has been sitting around. I would be curious to see if they did manufacture those parts today, if it would end up coming in a Yamaha box or a Star box. But nonetheless, so there's a quick rundown of what Star motorcycles were all about. So if anything, I think we have to defer to Yamaha on how they classified the VMAX, and clearly they classified it as a cruiser, along with all of the other cruisers in that division. So some folks may still want to deny it, and that's fine, but at least I feel like I've done my part, and hopefully trying to clear things up, particularly for those that didn't know the history of the original VMAX, and that it was definitely a power cruiser to go head-to-head with the first power cruiser, the V65 Magna, and at the same time go head-to-head with all the other cruisers, particularly Harley-Davidsons. But anyway, that's all I have for this one. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel. See you next time.